It's story time.
Hello there. Welcome to story time. I don't know what that means to you per se, but story time to me has the connotation of both tenderness and intimacy and an opportunity for authentic connection with real learning in a safe place, learning how to do life, how to do and to be me. Welcome to Storytime. I'm Kimberlyn from Life's Work Yoga, and we're talking about the sounds of freedom and the practice of yoga living, integrating the body, the mind, and the breath through intention, attention, and action to cultivate an intimate relationship with inspiration and joy. What's your favorite sound? Some of my favorite sounds include laughter, both for good reason and for no reason at all. Laughter as an expression of levity, of joy, of energy moving through the vocal cords. I also love the sounds of waves on the rocky shores of Maine, or even northern west coast. Anywhere that waves are coming into a rocky shore, I love that sound. But equally so, I love the sound of a gentle breeze in the trees of a mountain forest, or across the plains of grasses in the Midwest. I love hearing from the kind of nurtured space of my bed the sounds of summer, meaning children laughing outside or garden equipment being put to good use, as long as it's after 8 or 9 in the morning. But as a yogi, my love of the sound of Om is probably the most significant shift in the years that I've been practicing yoga. In that at first, the sound of Om was foreign and intimidating and even a bit unnerving. What does this sound mean? And as a young, new yogi, I was resistant to making, one, sounds for no reason, and two, making a sound that I didn't understand, or making a sound that perhaps didn't articulate a clear message. Well, what I wanted to address today is kind of not only the story of the Life's Work Yoga blessing, but also how that relates to my journey in making sound, being a sound maker from a place of compassion, from a place of intention, by integrating the body, the mind, and the breath to choose when and where and how to make sound. Thich Nhat Hanh gives a guiding principle that to speak when it improves upon the silence. And I feel this way about so many things when it comes to the yoga practice, is that we speak to improve upon the silence. We move to improve upon the stillness, right? Whatever it might be that your contribution, that your application of energy, when we think about it as the practice of ahimsa, the practice of compassion, the primary foundation of yoga, can it also be a practice that improves upon the conditions as they are existing currently? Now, I've talked a little bit in the past about some of the traditions that are being brought over to modern practice, over from India, from the ancients, but then they've also bounced back to India. The idea being is that everything is a process of integration. That's what learning is all about. And just adopting something for the sake of adopting it may or may not be the best honoring of that practice. And yet, not integrating that practice is also perhaps not honoring. So I come to the idea of Om and the word namaste, which in our modern American Western interpretation is used as a way of centering, of grounding, of connecting. Whether Om as a chant is done at the beginning or the end or even in the middle of the practice, it is meant to bring our voices and our minds and our bodies together in a shared experience. Now, there are some who sound Om and it's beautiful and it's glorious and it's so filled with musical competence that I, as a non-singer, felt intimidated that my Om sounds a little bit more like a frog who's learning to croak, right? Now, that may be a little too graphic, a little too self-deprecating, but that's how I felt. I'm not saying that's necessarily how it sounded to others, but that's how it felt. And so I was hesitant to do something that I wasn't obviously good at, hence the practice. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a master Omer today, but I am much more free in my body, releasing the tension of the Vishuddha chakra, the energy center here at the throat, so that I can make sound. But the way in which I am most comfortable making sound is actually through words, by putting together sentences and thoughts and ideas into words. So while I love Om for its lack of word structure, I love it for its pure essence of just sound. So namaste, again, is challenged as that's not what it means in its original form. It was basically a hi, a greeting of passers-by, not necessarily an honorific or a spiritual practice. Does that mean that it can't be? Absolutely not. That which is mundane can become spiritual if we give it an intention of being spiritual. So let me talk about the blessing that I use at Life's Work Yoga. And this is a blessing that I do silently as well as I do vocally when I conclude a session or a practice. And it goes like this. May you breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. And to me, this is the culmination of my experience with yoga, body, mind, and spirit, with sound and silence and intentional noises and those that perhaps were not intentional, that just escaped by way of the practice, by way of the movement. Whether it's tears, passing gas, moaning and groaning, whatever it might be, those sounds are evidence of life, of energy moving through the channels of the body. But when we talk specifically about the words, it really is my intention being put into form, tangible form of words that give context and meaning to the more traditional adopted version of namaste. It is a prayer of well-wishing as well as an intention setting so that when I re-enter the day, concluding my practice, I re-enter bringing with me the compassion, the ahimsa, the attention, the energy, softening to more of a generic focus so that when I do my daily things, I can hold on to the practice, the intention of yoga as a union. So breathe deeply. Yes, take in the breath. But I'm also talking about embrace prana deeply in all of its shapes and forms, in all of the manners in which it can come into our body. So what we see, what we look at, what we eat, what we drink, who we associate with. When we breathe in deeply, take in what we need in all forms of the way in which prana, energy, life force is available. Move freely, of course, yeah, I do refer to the lubrication, the dasha shalana of the joints to warm them up. But I'm also talking about the shifting of our attachments and our expectations, our mind stuff, and shifting how we give our energy, our attention to a focused, disciplined attention, to a soft ambiance of perhaps just awareness. Moving on to labor lovingly. This came to the blessing both as a way of integrating the disciplines of yoga, the asana disciplines that I practice being restorative and meditative practices to help you breathe and restore. Aerial yoga practices, which are about freedom and releasing us from the floor to move. And then I also have a heart passion for adaptive yoga, particularly for the fertility and the prenatal journey. So labor lovingly had a nuance of not only the labor of delivering a child, but the labor of doing our lives. Whether you physically birth your child, birth a project like writing a book, or contributing in some way to your dharma, your life's work. My wish, my prayer, my intention is that you are able to labor from a place of love, so that it is an abundance of your overflowing that becomes your dharma, your service. And finally, kind of putting it all together is to live vibrantly. And that really is about letting yourself be seen authentically, so that your energy waves can be felt and received willingly by those around you, not threateningly, but openly, in a way in which we can bring our vibrations together so that we can radiate the light that lives within each of us. And this is what the sound of Om can help us to do, or for that matter, any sound that we give the intention of opening to the union that is yoga. So, boy, this was a little bit of a heady story time today. Story time is usually pretty light and easy. So let me just say this. I'm going to share a round of Om and close with my Life's Work Yoga blessing. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see that perfection is not required. It's the practice. And it's about the intention of why we do the practice. Sounding Om and reciting this blessing makes me feel connected to myself and to you. And that is why I practice making sound like Om, because it helps me be free to be me and create space, I hope, to enable and to support you to be free to be you. Here we go. Cleansing breath. Breathe in. May you know the freedom of yoga. May you breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. May you be well. Namaste. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next week for our wrap up of story time for this season. I'm taking the month of August off, and I'll be back in September. But don't miss out next week. We're going to talk about this meditation and chanting and what that might look like in the story of you living your best life. Take care and be well. Bye for now.